this morning, uh, do things change? Sure, they do. Everything changes. Do we like it? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. What about life? Does it change? Yes, it does. Have any of us, or any of you, I got down you, should say us or you, have any of you ever experienced a change of life? A new season of life? Young or old, you may have already done this. You may have be getting ready to, and it may be on your agenda a few years from now. But women do. Women go through the change of life. I don't know why I'm looking at you two dudes, but women go through the change of life. Safer to look at them. Okay, I'm liable to get things thrown at me here in a little bit. But women have this sudden feeling of warmth that comes over them, and it is accompanied by sweats. I always told Katie it was a power surge. Maybe it's some flushing, and it's particularly around the neck and the face area. And it can happen day or night. It just doesn't have a certain time that it happens. And they may have emotional frustrations, perhaps as an increase in irritability, anxiety, or maybe depression. Some women have experienced difficulties sleeping because of these night sweats. And some women may notice change in their hair texture. Maybe their hair thins a little bit, or maybe the elasticity of their skin may not bounce back like it used to. Some report difficulty with concentration and memory, and often refer to it as brain fog. Now, you don't think that I was going to do all that research about change of life and leave the men out, did you? Better not, huh? Some men often face emotional confusion as they come to terms of aging and life transitions. They can appear to as feelings of sadness, anxiety, just like the women do, or a sense of loss from unfulfilled dreams or goals. Men may experience unhappiness with their jobs or personal lives, leading to desires for a major change. Some men may get an impulse behavior and make a drastic lifestyle changes, perhaps purchasing some luxury item. Is that what you're waiting on, Jeff? A boat? A boat. Or they may seek a new experience to cope with these feelings. They can have change in their physical health, such as a decrease in their energy level, or maybe some weight gain. Some emotional or psychological shift during their midlife episode, or midlife crisis is what some of them call it. Now, I went through all of that research and all that stuff, but that's not the kind of change that I want to talk about this morning. But everything changes. Everything changes, and there is a season for everything. So let's go to the book of Ecclesiastes. And we're going to go to chapter 3. We're going to read the first 8 verses. For everything there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to turn away, a time to search and a time to quit searching, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be quiet and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Few passages of Scripture speak to the human experience more honestly than these do. These verses remind us that life moves in seasons. Some are joyful, some are painful. Some feel productive and exciting, while others feel quiet and maybe uncertain. But every season has a purpose. And when placed in the hands of God, Solomon's words teach us that life is not a random act of chaos. God is present in every chapter of our life. And from these scriptures, we learn that everything changes in life. Take, for instance, this church. This church has experienced many changes in its 30-plus years of history. The name started out as Church Alive. Susan can contest to that. And then it changed to Northwest Arkansas Christian Center of Gravette. Now, how'd you like that name? It started out, if you look at it, Northwest Arkansas Christian Center, NWAC. But they couldn't use that. So they had to put a Gravette on there. But then in 2013, it was changed to the Church on the Hill. Because we changed it to the Church on the Hill because somebody would say, where do you go to church at? Well, I'd go to the yada, yada, yada down here. Oh, yeah, the Church on the Hill. Well, we thought, well, that's a no-brainer. Everybody knows where the Church on the Hill is, so we might as well change the name of it. So that's why we changed it to the Church on the Hill. The location of the church even changed over its period of history. When it first got started, it moved to wherever there was some free space. And it actually, I wasn't there then, or here then, but it actually met in a funeral home for a little while, where the funeral home used to be. It's where the dog boarding place is now. But it met there for a little while. This building that you're in now, not this sanctuary part, but the building itself, has been added on to 4 times. And, it's just the pastor that started this church was here. And then there was one after him that was here for about 3.5 years. And then there was me. So in its 30 plus years of history, it's only had 3 pastors. So that's fairly decent. Usually they don't last very long. They just kind of come and go. But the church has had its times of growth. It's had its times of decline. So the church understands that change happens. And we must adjust to every changing thing and seasons of life. And we can do this gladly and cheerfully as we look to God for help and assistance. All of life, including our human activity, is part of a predetermined cycle of life. Because if you look at verse 2 again, do you notice what it starts with? A time to be born. Everything that comes after birth is what we experience in the events of life. So the theme of the book of Ecclesiastes teaches us that all human existence, when lived apart from God, is frustrating and disappointing. All of this, all of the pleasures and material things of life, when sought for their own interest, bring nothing but unhappiness and a sense of uselessness. And the primary aim of the author of the book of Ecclesiastes, which was Solomon, is to show us from personal experience that all earthly goals and blessings, when pursued as an end in themselves, lead to a discontent and a void. You see, as seasons of nature change, so do seasons of life. And we must prepare and adjust for these seasons, just as we prepare and adjust for the seasons of nature. And we can do this only in knowing God and His truth. And one of the hardest truths for people to accept is nothing earthly stays the same forever. Some things we'd like for them to. Children grow up. Sometimes we'd wish they would stay babies, but that wouldn't be right. But they grow up. Careers change. Our health may rise and it may fall. Opportunities come and they go. And we often want longevity in a temporary world. But Ecclesiastes reminds us that life moves like the changing nature season, like the changing seasons of nature. Spring brings growth. Summer brings fruit. Autumn brings transition. and winter brings stillness. No season lasts forever, either in nature or in life. It said there's a time to plant and a time to harvest. You know, a farmer can't harvest tomorrow what he planted yesterday. He understands seasons. He plows in one season, he plants in another. He waits through another, and then he harvests in another season. If he becomes impatient and digs up what he planted, if he digs up the seed every week to check on its progress, to see if it's opening up, to see if it's doing this or that, he destroys the things that he hoped would grow. Well, doesn't he? And many people give up on God because they confuse planting season with harvest season. God may be growing something underground that we haven't seen yet. So don't abandon the field just because the harvest hasn't appeared yet. Farmers plant long before they see any result. And spiritually, there are seasons when God calls us to invest in relationships, begin ministries, learn new skills, raise children, serve faithfully without immediate reward. You see, planting seasons often feel unnoticed, don't they? But hidden roots eventually produce a visible fruit. You see, a bamboo tree spends years developing its root system underground, and you never see anything. There's no visible growth. It's all happening underground. And then suddenly it shoots up out of the ground, and here it goes. You see many people quit during the root building season because they can't see any progress yet. But God often develops depth before he develops visibility. You see, we all experience the seasons of life or the changes that happen in life, whether we enjoy them or not. We love some of the changes, and we dread some of the changes. We love the seasons of laughter, the seasons of joy. But on the other hand, we don't enjoy the seasons of weeping, do we? God has something to teach us in all seasons of life that we face. You see, you and your family have experienced changes that make you rejoice, that make you happy. And you've experienced changes that have brought you sadness, brought you sorrow. The important thing is to remember God is with us to bring good from all that we experience, regardless if it's good, bad, or indifferent. And Paul reminds us this in Romans 8:28. where he states, we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love him or love God and are called according to his purpose. You see, we must understand that God is always working in our behalf to ultimately bring good to us. In everything and every situation that we experience. We may not understand how he does it, but we do understand that he has a purpose and has promised to do it. And we know that he is the all-knowing and the all-powerful, and that he has promised and that he will do what he has promised. You see, God, in his authority, allows us to make decisions and choices, while all the time he's retaining control. You see, 1 Peter 1, verse 20 tells us, it says, God chose him as your Redeemer long before the world began. But now in these last days, he has been revealed for you. You see, God determined that Christ would come and atone for our sins before the world even began, before the foundation of the world. And God used decisions and choices of men to fulfill his promise to redeem sinners. So no change or no season we face is surprising to God. You know, and it said a time for every activity under heaven. An orchestra conductor, guy that sits up there and waves a little baton. He may motion for the violins to play softly, while the drums just sit silent. Later, the trumpets may erupt from out of nowhere, while the stringed instruments just wait. You see, every instrument has its time during the song. If every instrument played all at the same time, it'd be nothing but a bunch of noise, wouldn't it? You see, life is the same way. Not every season is meant for growth or celebration. Not every season is meant for conflict or rest. Different seasons produce different kinds of benefits. Trust God's timing. Even when our past seems insignificant, even when we don't understand it, we need to trust his timing. You see, since change is inevitable, since change is unavoidable, it's bound to happen. With God's help, we should plan and prepare for it. We can trust God to guide us into tomorrow because he alone the changes that we'll face. We should pray a similar prayer to that of St. Francis Assisi. Now, St. Francis Assisi was in the, I guess it would be the late 12th century, the early 13th century. And he prayed this prayer. He said, God, grant me the sincerity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. You see, so we must walk by faith in him. We need to resist the unwillingness to face certain changes. To a certain degree, we are creatures of habit, aren't we? We fight against change. We don't like change. Why? Because it causes us to move out of our comfort zone. We're not sure of the outcome. We're not sure what's going to happen. So we hesitate to accept some of the changes that we have to experience. We all have established our daily routines, haven't we? God uses change to promote our growth and his glory. Change will cause us to re-examine ourselves, re-examine our lives, and to make adjustments. Change can move us to look at ourselves differently and see our lives from a new perspective so that we can change for the better. You see, think of it. Think of the change the disciples faced when Jesus was crucified. Think about what they went through. They were unwilling for this change to happen. They weren't happy about it. They didn't believe him when he told them that he needed to face death for them. The disciples wanted Jesus to establish his kingdom in the physical sense, right then and there, and relieve them from the bondage that they were facing from the Roman oppression upon them. But after Jesus left, they realized that their true mission, they realized what their mission was, and they were motivated to be used to build Christ's kingdom like God intended them to do. Change will cause us to seek God's guidance. When we're faced with change that we cannot control, we are motivated to seek God more fully, aren't we? The writer of Proverbs told us in chapter 3, verse 6, he teaches us to seek his kingdom, seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. We become more willing to do this when we're aware of our own lack and ability. You see, there's a time to plant. In winter, trees appear dead. Branches are bare. Leaves are gone. Growth is absent. Katie looks out through the woods and she said, looks like a bunch of dead sticks. And that's what it looks like. But beneath the surface, those roots are still growing. Spring eventually reveals what winter was hiding. And some believers feel discouraged because they're in a winter season. But dormant doesn't mean dead. Okay? God often does his deepest work where nobody can see it. Just because nothing is blooming doesn't mean God is finished growing you. Now, I know there is different age groups in here today, but I don't mean this in a harsh way. But I want you to, I wrote it like this because I wanted to get across to you. Even old trees, okay? I know y'all's giggling at me. Even old trees still grow, okay? Right along with the young ones, the old ones still grow. Change will call us to depend totally on God. When we do this, we will begin to understand the changes we face now. God uses change to change us. Look at what Peter said in 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 12 and 13. He says, don't be surprised at the fiery trials you're going through, as if something strange were happening. Instead, be glad, for those trials make you partners with Christ in his suffering, so that you will have the wonderful joy of seeing his glory when it's revealed to all the world. You see, we should adjust our attitude in order to face change humbly. Paul adjusted to change in his life in an attitude of humility. When he wrote to the Philippians in verse 4, or chapter 4, chapter 4, verse 11 through 13, he says, not that I was ever in need. I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. I have learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it's with a full stomach or empty, with plenty or little. In verse 13, he says, for I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. So may we also learn to find the life lessons God has to teach us in this season of life. I'll finish with this. Told you it wasn't going to be very long. If you're in a difficult season, remember, winter doesn't stay forever. Storms eventually pass, and grief is not permanent. If you're in a season of blessing, cherish it. Thank God for it. And don't take it for granted. Ecclesiastes reminds us that life moves in seasons. But God stays faithful in every one of them. He stays faithful in weeping and laughing, in losing and finding, in silence and in speaking, in tearing down and in building up. Because he's still sovereign, he's still superior, he's still ruler. He's still in control. So the challenge is not controlling the seasons that we face, that we go through. The challenge is trusting God through those seasons. So what is the season in your life that you're facing now? What is the season we face as a church family? Trust Christ. Trust God. I have to every time I come up here. Every time I open the doors on Sunday morning, I have to. So we need to trust Him, trust His Word, trust it to guide us as we face the seasons of change. Amen.